Hello, and welcome to Self-Awareness Path. Most people believe that first impressions are sharp instincts, almost like an internal radar that instantly detects whether someone is trustworthy, competent, friendly, or suspicious. We often hear phrases like "trust your first impression," or "you can tell everything about someone in the first few seconds." But psychological science reveals a surprising truth. Many first impressions are not primarily based on who the other person is. They are heavily shaped by the emotional state we carry at that exact moment. In other words, the mood we are in can silently paint the entire picture before we even begin to observe reality. Imagine waking up after a stressful night, rushing through the morning, already irritated by traffic, delays, or unfinished responsibilities. When meeting someone new in that state, the brain is already operating under tension. Neutral expressions may appear unfriendly, small mistakes may look like incompetence, and ordinary pauses in conversation may feel awkward or suspicious. The other person has not changed, but perception has. Now imagine meeting that same person on a day filled with good news, calm energy, and a relaxed mind. Suddenly, the same behaviors may seem charming, humorous, or even impressive. This contrast demonstrates something fundamental. Perception is not only about what is observed, it is also about the emotional lens through which observation occurs. This phenomenon is deeply connected to how the brain processes information. Human perception is not a camera recording reality exactly as it is. Instead, it is an interpretative system, constantly predicting meaning based on prior emotional signals. When mood is positive, the brain expects positive experiences, and therefore interprets ambiguous signals more favorably. When mood is negative, the brain anticipates potential problems and begins scanning for signs of threat, rejection, or failure. Because first impressions are formed extremely quickly, often within seconds, the brain relies heavily on this emotional shortcut instead of careful analysis. The result is a judgment that feels immediate and certain, even though it is partially constructed from internal feelings rather than external facts. Another powerful element involved is emotional priming. Emotional priming occurs when events that happen shortly before a social interaction influence how the interaction is interpreted. Something as small as reading a frustrating email, hearing negative news, or feeling physically tired can prime the mind toward harsher interpretations. Conversely, laughter, music, pleasant conversations, or moments of success can prime the mind toward warmer perceptions. These emotional cues do not disappear when meeting someone new. They travel silently into the interaction and shape what we notice, what we ignore, and how we evaluate what we see. The danger of mood-driven first impressions is that they often feel extremely accurate. The brain naturally seeks consistency, meaning that once an initial judgment is formed, attention begins to focus on evidence that confirms it. If the first impression is negative, small neutral behaviors may be interpreted as proof that the person is indeed unfriendly or unreliable. If the first impression is positive, even noticeable flaws may be overlooked. This is known as confirmation bias, and it strengthens the illusion that the first judgment was correct from the beginning. In reality, the judgment may have been partially created by the emotional state we happen to be in. Understanding this concept changes the way relationships can be viewed. Many professional opportunities, friendships, and partnerships are shaped by first encounters. When mood influences those encounters, outcomes may depend less on true compatibility and more on emotional timing. Two individuals who meet under stressful circumstances may never discover how well they could have collaborated, while two strangers who meet in relaxed, positive settings may quickly assume they are naturally aligned. Recognizing this does not mean first impressions are meaningless. Rather, it reveals that they are incomplete snapshots that require time and repeated interaction before becoming reliable. Mood influence on perception also explains why people sometimes say, "At first that person seemed cold, but later they turned out to be very kind." Or initially, "that colleague felt amazing, but later something felt off." Over time, as emotional states fluctuate and more information becomes available, perception becomes less dependent on temporary moods and more grounded in observable patterns of behavior. The longer interactions continue, the less power the initial emotional lens has. However, many decisions are made before this deeper understanding develops, which is why awareness of mood influence becomes so valuable. There is also a neurological explanation behind this process. Emotional centers of the brain, particularly those involved in evaluating reward and threat, communicate constantly with cognitive areas responsible for judgment and reasoning. When mood is intense, whether positive or negative, emotional signals can dominate early interpretation, essentially guiding the brain toward conclusions before analytical thinking has time to fully engage. This does not mean logic disappears. It means logic often begins its work after emotional interpretation has already suggested a direction. Because early judgments are formed so quickly, the emotional system frequently acts as the first editor of reality. Social environments amplify this effect even further. Consider crowded workplaces, networking events, classrooms, or social gatherings where many interactions happen quickly. In these contexts, people rarely have the time to reevaluate initial impressions thoroughly. Decisions about who to approach, who to trust, or who to collaborate with may rely heavily on those early mood-influenced judgments. This explains why emotional self-awareness can become a powerful social advantage. Individuals who recognize when their mood is shaping perception are more likely to pause, reassess, and give interactions enough time to reveal more accurate information. Another important aspect is emotional contagion, the tendency for moods to spread between individuals during interaction. If someone begins a conversation while feeling tense or irritated, subtle signals such as tone of voice, facial expression, and body posture can transmit that emotional state to others. The other person may then react defensively or awkwardly, reinforcing the original negative impression on both sides. What appears to be incompatibility may actually be the result of shared emotional tension rather than genuine personality differences. In contrast, relaxed and open emotional states often encourage smoother communication, creating the impression of immediate rapport even among strangers. Understanding that first impressions are influenced by mood encourages a shift from immediate judgment to curious observation. What kind of person is this? It becomes more helpful to ask, what might be influencing how this person appears to me right now? This simple shift introduces psychological flexibility. It allows space for the possibility that perception may change as emotional conditions change. Over multiple interactions, patterns become clearer, and impressions begin to reflect reality more accurately. This awareness also has practical implications in professional settings. Job interviews, negotiations, meetings, and presentations often rely heavily on early impressions. Preparing for these situations frequently focuses on external performance, appearance, communication style, or presentation skills. Yet internal emotional preparation is equally important. Entering an interaction with emotional stability increases the likelihood that both perception and performance will be closer to reality rather than distorted by temporary stress or frustration. Emotional regulation techniques, such as breathing exercises, brief mental resets, or short moments of reflection before interactions, can significantly influence how others are perceived and how they perceive us. Relationships benefit from this understanding as well. Many misunderstandings begin when early mood-colored impressions are treated as permanent truths. A moment of awkwardness or tension can quietly define how someone is categorized for months or even years. When individuals recognize that moods fluctuate and perceptions shift, they become more willing to allow relationships time to develop naturally. Patience becomes a tool for accuracy, and repeated interaction becomes a path toward deeper understanding. There is also an important message about self-perception hidden within this topic. Just as our mood shapes how we view others, it shapes how we believe others view us. On difficult days, neutral feedback may feel critical, silence may feel like rejection, and small social missteps may feel amplified. On positive days, the same situations may feel insignificant. Recognizing the role of mood helps prevent the mind from constructing harsh self-judgments based on temporary emotional states. It reminds us that interpretation is not always a perfect reflection of reality. Developing awareness of mood-driven perception does not require eliminating emotions. Emotions are essential signals that guide attention and decision-making. The goal is not to suppress emotional influence, but to notice it. When awareness increases, automatic judgments begin to slow down, and curiosity begins to replace certainty. Instead of assuming that the first impression tells the whole story, the mind becomes open to updating its conclusions as more information appears. This flexibility is a core element of emotional intelligence and plays a major role in long-term social success. Over time, individuals who practice this awareness often notice something remarkable. Many people initially perceived as intimidating become approachable. Many initially overlooked individuals reveal unexpected strengths, and many early misunderstandings dissolve simply because more interaction allowed perception to adjust. Reality begins to appear more nuanced, less extreme, and far more interesting than the rapid judgments formed in the first few seconds of meeting someone. The next time a strong first impression appears, whether positive or negative, it can be useful to remember a simple truth. That impression may be partially describing our current emotional state, rather than the other person. By allowing time, observation, and emotional balance to participate in the process, perception becomes clearer and relationships gain the opportunity to develop on a foundation closer to reality. Understanding this subtle psychological mechanism does not remove the importance of first impressions, but it transforms them from final verdicts into preliminary sketches, useful starting points that become meaningful only after patience and awareness fill in the details. And when this understanding becomes part of daily life, interactions change. Conversations become less about immediate judgment and more about discovery. Encounters become opportunities to learn rather than moments to categorize. Gradually, the awareness grows that every first impression is not only a meeting between two people, but also a meeting between one person and the emotional state they bring into the room. Thanks for watching. Your support is crucial to us at Self-Awareness Path. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to stay updated and help our channel grow. Don't forget to like and share. It shows your appreciation and boosts our visibility. We value your feedback or any suggestions you might have, so drop a comment. Explore more content on our channel. There's plenty to discover. Thanks for being part of our community, and see you in the next video.